Tonight, federal agents say 2 men are now in custody after a suspected fentanyl distribution operation was uncovered in Forest Park.
So, chat, the feds have locked up Future's brother, like blood brother. That's kind of very alarming to me. Why the hell would Future's blood brother, who kind of like runs the FBG label?
Yo, Future's brother FBG Casino just got arrested by the feds, and this situation is serious. We're talking about federal drug conspiracy charges that carry a potential life sentence. Let me break down what we actually know and what could happen next. On November 14th, 2025, federal agents arrested Rico Boykins, known as FBG Casino, at an Airbnb in Forest Park, Georgia. He's 41 years old and he's Future's actual blood brother. The feds say they found 21 kilos and nearly $400,000 in cash. They also arrested David Montoya-Diaz, a 23-year-old from Coachella, California. First off, we need to talk about what they actually found. It wasn't cocaine or heroin. It was 21 kilos of fentanyl. That's the drug that's dropping bodies everywhere. One of the bricks even had the Louis Vuitton logo stamped on it.
So that kind of seems like they're doing some drug dealing, right? 21 kilos? Wow. Fentanyl? Wow.
The way they caught them is wild. Prosecutors saying Montoya-Diaz was in the middle of selling to Casino when they kicked the door in. Not just possession, an active deal going down. That 80 grand in the Goyard bag, Casino had posted that same bag on his Instagram. Remember when he said rappers be snitching on themselves through social media? He was talking about himself. This whole thing was part of Operation Take Back America, the feds going after fentanyl nationwide, and they want Casino held with no bail. When the feds say no bail, they're basically saying, we got you and you're not getting out. 5 days later, November 19th, both Casino and Montoya-Diaz had to appear in federal court. That's when we found out the feds are calling this part of their attack on transnational criminal organizations. They're not treating this like regular street dealing. They're treating it like cartel business. The U.S. attorney said this was a direct hit against people poisoning communities. When federal prosecutors start using that type of language publicly, they're sending a message. They're coming hard and they're not negotiating. Now, let's talk about what these charges mean. Federal drug conspiracy with that amount carries a mandatory minimum of 10 years. But with 21 kilos, we're talking about potential life sentence. In the federal system, you serve 85% minimum. There's no parole like state charges. Now, Casino isn't just known for being Future's brother. He'd been trying to make moves in music himself. Around 2013, he put out a project where he was claiming he left the drug game behind. The title was literally about being done with dealing. He had Future on there, got Young Scooter on tracks, and worked with producers like Metro Boomin and Zaytoven who were building the Atlanta sound. Looking back now, that whole I'm done with the streets angle aged terribly. Casino had some buzz in Atlanta with tracks like Cashed Out, but never broke through nationally. This wasn't his first time getting arrested either. He caught drug and gun charges before in Georgia, but those were state charges. This federal case? Whole different beast. What makes this even crazier is Casino was actually in one of Future's videos, the one called Feds Did a Sweep. He's in there flashing money, living that lifestyle. Man was basically in a video predicting what was gonna happen to him. You can't make this up.
Ironically, FBG Casino is in the video. FBG Casino is in the video called Feds Did a Sweep.
Casino has also been telling the feds he only makes $2,000 a month working at a studio. Meanwhile, prosecutors looking at his old crib that cost $4 million and all his foreign cars like, you think we stupid? When you lie about money to the feds, now they're thinking money laundering too. But anywho, here's where it gets complicated. Casino has been involved with FBG, Future's label. Now, we don't know exactly what his role was, but if he was using any label resources for illegal activity, that could potentially open up bigger problems. Let me explain how RICO cases work, because this is what everyone's worried about. RICO stands for Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. The feds used it on Young Thug and YSL. They used it on Bobby Shmurda and GS9. Here's how it works. They argue that a legitimate business is actually a criminal enterprise. They use everything as evidence: lyrics, music videos, social media posts. If the feds wanted to build a RICO case, they would need to prove FBG was used for criminal activity. Now, Future hasn't been charged with anything. Let me be clear about that. But here's what could happen hypothetically. If the feds believe Future knew about Casino's activities and the label benefited in any way, they could try to build a conspiracy case. Future's catalog is full of references to the lifestyle. Move That Dope, Trap N-Words, 56 Nights. If prosecutors wanted to use lyrics as evidence, they have material. But lyrics alone aren't enough. They would need actual evidence of criminal activity. The California connection is important. When you have people from different states, that's interstate trafficking. That's what makes it federal instead of state charges. That young man from California, at 23 facing potential life, If he decides to cooperate, that could change everything. Here's what typically happens in these cases. The feds offer cooperation deals. They tell defendants, help us, and we'll help you. With Casino facing 10 to life at 41 years old, cooperation might be his only chance at seeing freedom before he's elderly. But cooperation means giving information about the entire operation. That could mean testifying about suppliers, distributors, and potentially anyone who knew about the operation. That's where it gets dangerous for anyone in Casino's circle. Now let's talk about what Future's options are. Hypothetically, if he pays for Casino's defense, prosecutors might argue that's evidence of a continuing criminal enterprise. But if he doesn't help his brother, how does that look? It's an impossible situation. Future would need to be extremely careful right now. His lawyers are probably telling him to say nothing publicly, make no financial transactions with Casino, and distance himself from the situation. Any wrong move could pull him into the case. Looking at similar cases gives us an idea what could happen. When they got Bobby Shmurda, they offered him 5 years to testify against his crew. He refused and got 7 years. Young Thug's Rico case has him sitting in jail for over 2 years now fighting charges. The federal conviction rate is around 95%. Once they arrest you, they usually have enough to convict. Casino's best case scenario is probably a plea deal, but even with cooperation, that much weight means serious time. Here's what this means for the hip-hop industry. If this becomes a Rico case, it could set a precedent. Labels would have to be more careful about who they employ, who they associate with. The feds are showing they'll go after rap labels like they went after the mob. What's also important is the timing. Why now? Federal investigations take months or years. They don't just randomly raid houses. They build cases slowly, gather evidence, flip witnesses. Somebody gave them information to make this arrest happen. Could there be more arrests coming? In federal conspiracy cases, they usually arrest multiple people. They want the whole network. Suppliers, distributors, money launderers. Casino and Montoya-Diaz might be just the beginning. Future's silence right now is notable. He hasn't posted, hasn't commented, nothing. That's probably smart legally, but it also shows how serious this situation is. His team is probably in crisis mode figuring out how to handle this. The music industry is watching this closely. If Future gets pulled into this, and again, he hasn't been charged with anything, it would shake up the entire scene. Labels would panic. Artists would move different. The whole game would change. What's sad about this is Casino is 41 years old. He had opportunities to leave the streets. His brother is one of the biggest artists in the world, but for whatever reason, pride, addiction to the lifestyle, feeling like he needed his own identity, he stayed in the game. For Future, the best case scenario is this stays limited to Casino and doesn't expand. Worst case scenario, the feds build a larger case that touches FBG and everyone associated. If Casino decides to fight the charges, he's looking at trial where 21 kilos speaks for itself. If he cooperates, he might get reduced time but burns every bridge. If he stays quiet and takes the time, he's probably dying in federal prison. What do y'all think is gonna happen? Will Casino cooperate? Will this expand to a bigger case? Could Future potentially get pulled into this? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications. As more information comes out about this case, we'll keep you updated with the facts.